What is up, ladies, gents, the non-binary finies? Hello, hello, welcome to or welcome back. Um, Today is a yapping session because why not? I feel like yapping. Um, I may or may not have watched or rewatched the Gen 5 My Little Pony Make Your Mark, and I have a lot of questions, like a lot. Some of the lore makes absolutely no sense to me, and some lore was mentioned and then never mentioned again. I may or may not have also been watching Star Strike recently. Shout out to him. Shout out to him. We're not skipping on the shout outs. Um, so this video is more of a podcast like setting more than anything. So I will probably not be editing out any of like my stupid crap. But um, so one thing that did occur to me is Skyros. Opaline mentions a place called Skyros, and for those who don't know or haven't been keeping up on the lore, Skyros is an ancient Sovereign type place, where Equestria's Pegasi, not Pegasi, it was not Pegasi, huh? I think it was the Alicorns. It was definitely the Alicorns. I'm losing it. But you're we're just probably gonna leave that in. It needs to be a podcast. I'm gonna get super distracted while recording all this. But Skyros is a place that existed sometime in Equestria's distant past. It was the birthplace of Fullhood and Fullholmhood, um, of Celestia, Luna, and Opaline, the Alicorns. Apparently, Skyros was a very cloudy, like Cloudsdale. It was basically like another type of Cloudsdale, but for Alicorns. And Opaline mentions in a specific episode about Skyros and how she knew Celestia and Luna when they were younger. And now here, and then the confusing part. Here's the confusing part. Later on, it is mentioned in the show that Opaline had to steal the dragon fire from the dragons in order to become the fire alicorn she was. Which is kind of weird to me because beforehand it was mentioned that she was always a fire alicorn and that she knew Celestia and Luna. Um, Shout out to Star Strike for actually opening my eyes to that one. I love him. He's funny. But Skyros is a weird place. And obviously, if you look it up, like on Google and like the official Wikipedia for G5 MLP, it literally states, and I quote, in My Little Pony, Opaline becomes a fire alicorn after absorbing fire from Sparky. But beforehand, it was mentioned that she stole fire from dragons, period, around Twilight's time to become a fire alicorn. And before that, it was mentioned that she was already a fire alicorn and knew Celestia and Luna back in Skyros. What is going on with this? There is like so much inconsistency with this timeline. And Opaline was apparently banned. Hear me out. Now listen. Banned from Skyros. So there is a heavy chance that Skyros does exist. It's just Opaline's story as a whole is completely mixed up. What is up with that? I I don't even understand this. And honestly, I just wanted to take a little time to yap about this. So this is going to be just a me yapping video. Probably no edits whatsoever, or a few edits here and there, but like nothing too big to where it's just like, oh, I'm editing out bloopers and crap. Nah. But I just wanted to take a little deep dive onto Skyros a bit. Um, I am on the Wikipedia right now. I'm just kind of gonna, read this out, I guess. Okay, before we take a deep dive into Skyros, let's talk about our main villain. Well, our main villain up until she's not anymore, Opaline Arcana. Opaline Arcana is a female alicorn in the fifth generation of My Little Pony, Make Your Mark, which is what we're talking about. She is the main antagonist of the series up until like the last two episodes. And her first appearance is pretty cool, but also very mysterious and eerie. We don't know who she is up until she makes herself present, and she raised an alicorn called Misty Bright Dawn. In the series, she is also dubbed as the Shadow Alicorn, the Shadowy Alicorn, and the Evil One. It is not until a few episodes at the first chapter where we actually learn her name, Opaline Arcana. And now Opaline is the one known to be a fire alicorn, with her body color being a magenta purple, her hair silver with cyan golden green streaks, her eye color a deep ocean, and her cutie mark very mysteriously a fire-like heart-shaped thing, kind of somewhat similar to the crystal heart if you guys remember that. She is an alicorn. Her age is unknown, but it is hinted throughout the series that she is older than Twilight Sparkle and about the same age as Celestia and Luna would be. So we can go off from there that she has been around for a long time. And if you know anything about alicorns, alicorns are one of the few immortal beings of the My Little Pony franchise. So it's no surprise that Opaline, an alicorn, has lived this long and survived through so much, even after magic was erased from Equestria up until Sunny and her friends restored it. Now that we have Opaline's little introduction out the way, let's talk about her a bit. Opaline throughout the series has hinted at her being a powerful alicorn. Obviously, we don't get to see this up until the climax of the last chapter. But throughout the series, she has been scheming, trying to find her way to get to the Crystal Bright house to retrieve the crystals and everything. But putting that aside, Opaline's backstory was very much hinted at, but never truly known, at least within the series. I have not read any recent books, so I might be wrong on this. But as of what I know, recording this and editing like the little funny bits, um, I know nothing of what other than what the stuff has given us. Now, Opaline has said herself that she has known Celestia and Luna back in Skyros, and she had a physical brawl with Twilights before magic was erased from Equestria. So we know that she knows about Twilight and her reign over Equestria, and we also know that in her filiahood, she has known or has been around Celestia and Luna. And that has been hinted very thoroughly throughout the show. And Opaline even says it herself. I can't remember if she explicitly says their name, but it was definitely hinted around and shown that she had some kind of connection there with Celestia and Luna, the other two Alicorn sisters, before Twilight came in and became ruler of Equestria. So we know Opaline has been there long enough, and Skyros was never explicitly mentioned in FIM, Friendship is Magic. nor was it mentioned in Equestria Girls or at all by Sunset Shimmer. So maybe Sunset Shimmer doesn't know about Skyros, and maybe in FIM no one else kind of knew about Skyros. Because if it is the home place of Celestia and Luna, then it is very old. It's a very old place, and my theory at the moment is Skyros eventually became what we know today as Cloudsdale, and what G5 knows as Zephyr Heights. I could be wrong here, but a theory's a theory. Skyros is, in fact, a place in the sky where Alicorns lived. So, my theory isn't far from it, and things evolve over time. um and it is shown in the show. In FIM we have Cloudsdale and Ponyville and all these other places, but in Make Your Mark we have Maritime Bay, Bridalwood, Zephyr Heights. It's no surprise that things have evolved over time. Skyros could have eventually fallen apart, with the only alicorns known to the show being Luna, Celestia, and then later on, Cadence and Twilight, and then Skyros being a place where alicorns lived, and then there no not being really any alicorns could have dissipated and fallen apart, and later on throughout the wars turned into Cloudsdale where Pegasus live. And as for Zephyr Heights could have easily been something turned into what it was today after magic has been separated. It is mentioned by Twilight and in various backstories mentioned about the crystals that Twilight took the crystals and gave them to the respective pony kinds, and then the pony kinds ran off, which is part of the reason why, I should say, magic got erased from Equestria. The ponies weren't united. It is also why things like the sirens and the wendigos didn't appear, because there was no negative emotions. There just wasn't any harmony. And that was also mentioned by a couple of people, Star Strike, thank you, um, that there was no negative emotions, which is why we only see the Wendigos, or what seems to be the Wendigos, appear in the second episode of chapter one, where everyone isn't getting along and Posey and others are being basically racist to Pegasi and unicorn kinds, being in Maritime Bay. But moving on from that, our main topic here is Skyros and Opaline. So moving back to that, Opaline is definitely old, and I mean old, old. There's no way she isn't. Well, she could be just as old as Luna. I don't know about Celestia. Celestia is the older sister, but it is definitely clear within the show that she is a lot older than she appears, which also leaves a theory for Twilight still being alive, since alicorns are immortal beings. It also leaves questions about Candace, Luna, and Celestia. But that's a theory for another time. I'm a yap about that another time. Um, so now that we understand a bit of Opaline and where she says she came from, we can talk about Skyros. Skyros. Skyros was an ancient place that existed sometime in Equestria's distant past. It was the birthplace and fallhood of Princess Celestia, Princess Luna, and Opaline Arcana. It is strongly implied that Skyros was or is a nation and or city state comprised of entirely or at least ruled by Alicorn ponies, heavily suggesting that Skyros was only Alicorn prohibited and only consists of Alicorns. With Celestia and Luna being and having these connections to the sun and the moon respectively, this attention largely overshadowed Opaline, and the royal sisters did not help matters in ignoring Opaline and refusing to accept her as a friend. Later on, roughly around 1111 years later, way before Twilight Sparkle's reign, Celestia and Luna left Skyros and into Equestria. This gave way to them meeting ponies like Starsword the Bearded and befriending a number of unicorns, earth ponies, and pegasi, which then formed what we know today as the Elements of Harmony and Equestria and whatnot. I'm not going to bore you with that. Now, with this on topic, where's Opaline and what is her story, might you ask? It is heavily implied and I believe talked about within the Wikipedia that Opaline was banned and banished from Skyros. This had to do with Opaline's hatred and other many things and whatnot. What the My Little Pony Wikipedia implies is that Opaline was banished from Skyros because her growing belief in Alicorn superiority. So basically, nationalism. Opaline was a clear sign and definition of nationalism, believing that only Alicorns have whoa, strong word, superiority over other ponies, including, but not limited to, dragons, Kirin, earth pony, pegasi, unicorns, etc. Also the hippogriffs, we can't leave them out, but that leaves the etc. part. So in Opaline's nationalist mind, she believed that Skyros, Alicorns, have a superiority, and her desire to overthrow the Alicorn leaders to take control of Equestria and take over Skyros as a whole back in the day has led and controlled her to have conflict with Twilight Sparkle, Celestia, Luna, and everyone else. But the thing is, no one has been able to defeat Opaline up until Twilight Sparkle. So the two Alicorns she grew up with had no way of defeating her. Starswirl, English. Whoa, that's a long name for him. I'm reading this thing. I'm reading his name, and I'm just like, whoa. Starswirl, the bearded, and the six pillars is what I'm guessing this couldn't defeat her either, or they just had no connection and or knowledge of her. Celestia and Luna tried nothing to stop her, from what I'm seeing. But we all know Celestia and Luna. Come on, the girls didn't want to help until like the last season when they felt they weren't needed. But every other time they were needed, they were nowhere to be seen and were late to the party. That kind of thing. See now, she has a very big superiority complex, and we see that throughout the series when she intimidates Misty, and when she finally faces the main, well, now six. It was the main five, but now it's six because, yes. But in Opaline's case, she was banished because she seen regular ponies, quote unquote, as lesser, while alicorns were the dominant species, I guess. However, other ponies look at other ponies. She tried to overthrow them in anger, which did lead to her banishment. So, she obviously spent all these moons, many moons, planning for revenge, and she lost. And then magic came back, and she lost again. So that's one thing. I guess her trying to say adopt, which and rightly so, stealing and controlling Misty to gain some type of friendship backfired, and she just couldn't do it. But my take on Skyros, just to recap, I believe Skyros is a thing that should be talked about more, especially with this a giant lore drop like this. I feel like it should be talked about more. And I do believe that with the evolution of Equestria, Skyros became something more. Now, before anybody says anything, oh, but you said Celestia Luna left to Equestria around this many years ago, so technically Skyros was already a thing when Equestria was a thing. Yes, yes. But did it ever mention Cloudsdale? I'm just saying, you got this is stuff you got to think about. It's there. And like I said, what I said earlier was a theory. Skyros could have evolved into Cloudsdale. You can't argue with me on that. Okay, you can, but like this is just a theory. A game theory. I'm sorry. We miss you, Matt Pat. Okay, so I did a little more research into this. Cloudsdale is a city within Equestria where the Pegasus live. So I will take back my statement of Skyros transforming and over time evolving into a Pegasus city. Um, so yes, I did take a little more research on that subject, but it was a nice theory while it lasted. So I'm looking at like an equestrian map currently, and Cloudsdale, yeah, Canterlot, Dragonland, yeah. I mean, so Skyros remains a mysterious place other than what we were given in the show. And it's sad that this couldn't been talked about in FIM because I feel like the lore drop in FIM would have been insane if they really took the time to write it in an episode. Or like, one of the times where Twilight actually sits down with Celestia and talks or whatever. Something like that, where it's like you're actually sitting down with the sisters and talking to them and learning more about their past. It would have been awesome. And it's crazy because, like, yes, we don't know a lot about them, but we do know enough of them to know that they are really powerful ponies, and it's crazy. Now, someone like Cadence is a whole other mystery, and that's a whole nother video I'm not getting into. But someone like Cadence, where we barely know where she came from, other than this, and that, and what we know from the books and what is told to us in FIM, how she's Twilight's old babysitter and how she married Shining Armor, became the princess of the Crystal Empire, how she had a Alicorn born child. All that stuff given to us is what we know. We don't know her full past other than what we know in FIM, and for those who read the books, know what happens in the books. Now, other than what we know in FIM, and for those who read the books, know what happens in the books. Now, Cadence is a whole different story, and that is not who we're talking about today. So, back to Opaline. Who or what is Opaline Arcana? Now, I know what you're going to say. Oh, Opaline's an alicorn. She is so clearly an alicorn. She is literally an alicorn. Yes, I am aware she is an alicorn. I can see that. It is said through the series that she is an alicorn. She compares herself to Sunny because they are alicorns. She believes she is superior because she is an alicorn. Yes. What I mean by this is, how is she an alicorn? As we see throughout the series, both Make Your Mark, the movie, and FIM, not all alicorns are just born an alicorn. Well, obviously, with the exception of Shining Armor and Caden's kid, Twilight is given her alicorn status, abilities, and looks by Celestia. Sunny Star Scout is given her half alicorn appearance and powers when she reunites the crystals and the ponies. Now, the ongoing theory with that is Sunny is only part alicorn because she wasn't given it to her by another alicorn. So she has the appearance and powers of one from time to time, but she isn't full alicorn. Twilight, on the other hand, is a full alicorn because she was given the alicorn abilities, powers, and looks by another alicorn, aka Princess Celestia. So, what's the deal with Opaline? Why is she an alicorn? And why is she a fire alicorn? That isn't given to us mostly outside of her kneeling to steal dragon magic in order to become a fire alicorn. Before stealing the fire, she was already implied to be an alicorn. She was shown to be an alicorn as a filly, which is why Skyros connects to her in so many ways. Now, I don't have a necessarily theory for this, other than someone gave it to her, or she just was, in fact, born an alicorn. But outside of this, Opaline Arcana remains a mystery, and I know for sure a lot of bronies out there are going to be deep diving into this as much as anybody hates that series. It's still lore and it's still connected to the MLP universe, whether it is in or outside of Equestria Girls. So now the real question is, Hasbro, when is Equestria Girls gonna make a sequel out of a Make Your Mark? Because honestly, let's be real here. At least a few people are curious to see the human version of the main six, or the new main six. And me personally, I would love to see how a human version of Zip would play out. But that's all for now. That's where I'm gonna leave my yapping session. Um, Maybe next time I'll talk about the new elements of harmony. As in, oh, is Sunny Star Scout really magic, or is she something else? And me personally, I believe Zip is more bravery than she is loyalty. Because all of them are loyal, but bravery is where Zip mostly stands. But that is another topic for another video, and that is where I'm going to end everything. So, adios, sayonara. It is your host, Kumakaze, and see you guys around.